In the process of a thought, you said, hold that thought. Since we're both over the hill, what was that thought?
The mitochondrial DNA, the movement of our family up to Scotland and
Yeah.
Ireland and Scandinavian. I think Mima's family, Sesher, I keep trying to find an origin for the name of Sesher, and there is none. So there's a German name Sacher, Sacher, or there's the Swiss name Switzer. And a lot of names, when people moved or immigrated to the United States, they took on different names.
Yeah.
They went by what was verbally heard. In other words,
Yeah.
I heard Schweitzer as or Sacher and as Sesher. Maybe it eventually evolved into Sesher.
There was that point where expediency sort of honed off the rough edges of certain names, and they said, okay, let's just call you this because it seemed too complicated or
we can't spell it, so we're gonna
hard to
cut
pronounce.
off half of it.
Yeah, I think just to drop back just a sec, I was making humor, I suppose, that in our family, maybe not you, but there's a tendency when someone is behaving a certain way to claim that our ancestry is a particular nationality. Like I was known to be thrifty, and okay, that's the Scotch.
Yeah, the Scotch.
It's coming out. And it's selective genealogy to explain a behavior that probably we don't really approve of, I suppose. So that's interesting. Western Europe, right? Western Europe and
Which includes Scandinavia.
Scandinavia. Yeah, and this DNA has opened up, I guess, ideas about ancestry that we never thought before, and I hope someday that it will allow us as a human race to be less thinking of superiority, but rather as having a common origin.
All cousins.
Yeah.
Even in Africa, I mean, it's true. We all sort of came from Africa.
And it's, I guess we're digressing in a way and moving away, but I've heard that the color of the skin has so little.
That's not racial.
Yeah.
Color of the skin is not racial.
Yeah. So, but we haven't learned that in this country. Yeah. I think we were talking earlier about the Watson side, some of which spent time in incarceration after due process of law.
Yeah.
It sounds like with hard evidence discovered on their person. Was that a surprise to you? No.
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, in a way, but Dad's dad, did you know he was the best moonshine maker in the area?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Dick Powell was one of his best customers from Hollywood.
No. Wait a minute. No.
Somebody wrote that in something about him. But Dick Powell, and he worked at a bar in Florette.
Dad's father. And he was was he mean?
Oh, he was mean.
He was a mean SOB, they used to say.
Yeah.
And my dad, I'm told, was a mama's boy. Was that true?
Yeah.
And so what that led to, is it true that Dad's dad threw him out because Mom his mom was making pork chops for him, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Or some
Doing
crazy-
something special for him.
Yeah, and that was it.
Kicked him out.
And you said he went to live with a relative.
Olive.
Yeah,
Olive.
yeah. So my dad trapped animals, probably along the river.
Yeah, muskrats.
Muskrats.
When we lived in West Elizabeth during the Depression, he did that. Blackie picked coal along the railroad tracks for heat.
Wow.
My dad shot or trapped muskrats for $2 each.
Mm.
And we had a garden in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And Mom raised lovebirds and canaries.
See, that explains some things I never knew. Her affection, if you will, for birds, and
She
she's
always had birds
Yeah,
when she could.
there were influences in hard times, I guess, that are defining in many respects, because for me they showed up later. I didn't even know why, and here I'm hearing some explanation of that. We had people that came into the family but not related. I mean, you mentioned Blackie was my mom's sister's husband, and he's an interesting character in himself. But so far as genealogy, he's on the tree, but all of his.
They all lived in McKeesport.
Now, did you travel any of those paths of people who married
Yeah.
into the direct family?
His family was mostly Irish.
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 He was accused of being a number of things.
His father, and he often changed names. His father was a Collins. He often used Irons and Collins and another name. But they said he may have been in the Irish mob in McKeesport.
Yeah, Blackie was a dark character of questionable repute, you might say, and
he was tough. he was a gangster type.
and he managed to do a number on his.
Iris often had black eyes.
That would be a whole other story which wouldn't show up in genealogy. How and why these marriages took place.
Yeah.
And I imagine somewhere along there were babies conceived, or groups of people that hung out together, and there was a fair amount of that. You were part of I won't call it a gang, but you had a group of young people that.
Yeah, we hung out.
And that led to your marriage to Bill?
I wasn't pregnant. I mean,
she wasn't pregnant.
I didn't get pregnant until after I got married.
Swear on the Bible.
I swear on the Bible. She was, let's see, I got married in September and she wasn't born until the next August.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a 9-month baby, 10-month baby.
She just had a long gestation.
Yeah. I think everybody in Elizabeth was waiting to count. They were counting on their fingers.
Yeah. I know we're diverging a little bit, but those were, can I say those were like fun times that you had with your gang, your merry little gang of people?
We used to go out, let's just say Bill's relative owned where you swing golf balls, what they call driving range.
Yeah.
And it had a restaurant beside it. And we often would stay there, and when it closed down, we would go and pick up golf balls. So often I would call Mom and tell her where I was, but I was having coffee and breakfast at that restaurant because we had just finished picking up golf balls all over the
oh my gosh.
range. And then I would drive home.
Now, that was before they invented this machine that drives around and the
Right.
balls get picked up like we
We
have.
had to walk around
And just stoop and pick up
ball.
original stoop labor. But I guess
Yeah.
everything was fun in those days, wasn't it? Yeah.
You had to watch too around Halloween because outhouses got knocked over. Believe it or not, there were still outhouses.
Mm-hmm.
Watermelons got thrown, or I mean, there was. We used to take Jeep rides up slag dumps. And these slag dumps were like
Oh, yeah,
this.
yeah. That sounds dangerous.
It was. We could topple over it
But you
because
all
it was
had-
all open. All we had was a roll bar,
Well, you at least had a roll bar, but no seat belts.
no seatbelts.
Mm-hmm.
So we were a little.
So in the stepping back from that, and in the scheme of things, living in Western Pennsylvania, were we? I'm asking this as a question. Were we in the kind of middle of the fabric of the working class, or where would you put us?
Yeah. Well, Poppy really was high in the Masons, and he paid cash for his cars. He was really a rich man that did not act like a rich man.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. But he was more the part of the outlier, right,
Yeah.
in the family, and a self-made man. And
He did not offer money. You had to ask for it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, he could be generous, to give him some
Yeah.
credit. The suit that I interviewed in for the job after college was purchased by him,
Yeah.
and the top coat also. So I had one suit and a winter top coat, and I think he also bought my slide rule, a really
Uh-huh.
nice
Nice.
log Versalog picket. And so, but those were, of course, the exceptions. And as you say, he was, even if he had money, he didn't shower it upon.
And he didn't let anybody know he had it.
Mm-hmm. But he bought property though near us, didn't he? Some of the property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He helped out Iris, and he helped to build that. He built that thing over the garage. Goldie and family didn't build that. He did.
Oh, the Bunk did the labor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Bunk did the labor.
Mm-hmm.
But the money, came from him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was very frugal with his money, but he was high up in, and I didn't know that until later, that he was really high up in the. There's rumor that his brother Ed was a 33rd degree, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the words, but I have to admit I don't appreciate the meaning of being higher up and how that's attained or what it means. But you have to have some wealth and position and probably some voting by people to acknowledge your success.
You had to have some success, but what they defined as success in life,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But he and Edward, Poppy and Edward were very close.
Now, remind me again, Edward was,
His brother.
his brother. Mm-hmm. And the rest of us were, not me personally, I was a kid, but were mill workers, right?
Blackie was a mill worker.
Mhm.
Dad was on the boats.
Homer was in the mill.
Mill.
Howard.
Bunk was in was a salvage company in Pittsburgh.
Zubik.
Zubik's.
I remember that.
Yeah.
As a really young child, he was a resource for rubber balls because where he worked, I know it sounds strange, on the river where the salvage yard was, and working in barges and whatnot, balls would float by in the water.
Yeah.
And he had a propensity to scoop them up, and he had this trove of balls in the garage near his house that he would dole out. But he was a devilish man, and
Oh, he was ornery.
he drank.
He was out and out ornery.
He drank. He drank a quart of Old Shea Ale every night after work, sitting on his front porch, and the kids would gather around him, including me, and he would sing these little naughty songs like Jaybird, Jaybird, sitting on a pole. Wiggle, waggle, went his tail, and the shit began to fall. And he would scare, I don't know, me, and because he threatened to drill out your butt with a, with a drill. I don't know how that conversation went in that direction, but
Oh, boy.
that was some color.
Well, he and Goldie had a fiery marriage because he often talked about, he says, oh, I'm going in and have the old lady throw some bluebirds at me. She would throw the plates at him, and the plates had bluebirds on them.
Oh. Just a reminder, Goldie is Mabel's sister. Yeah.
And married to Uncle Bunk.
Yeah. It seemed like they were entirely different people, Mabel and Goldie.
Oh, they were.
I mean, of course, it's obvious.
Goldie was a lot like her mother, like Lillian. Lillian Rising was their mother. And Lillian, Meemaw, whenever Lillian was coming up to, she very rarely came to visit, but this one time she was coming to visit. Meemaw was in a tizzy because she was afraid that she was going to meet a black person and make them get off the sidewalk for her.
Oh, my.
That's the way they were in Kentucky. But and she would have done it. Because and the teacher to drive, they put her down in a barge.
That's the story. In a Model T. They lowered it in the barge. She couldn't do no harm.
Yeah.
Driving around the bottom of that barge.
Yeah. But she was a tough old cookie. And she, Grandpa had a lady friend who was named Belle. And I think Belle was Lillian's sister.
Oh.
Because in looking at the names, Belle is one of the children and her sister. But anyway, she found out about Belle. Iris knew about her because Iris said Iris told me about it. She said she would often go visit him and Belle would be there, and he didn't hide it. But I guess Grandma got finally got upset about it, and she took Raymond and her went back to Kentucky, so they left him.
Oh.
And Raymond I remember one time, Raymond for a while went a little crazy. He was a hobo, jumping trains. And he was coming to Meemaw's, and he had to come to the back door because he was dressed like a hobo. And she was afraid of him.
Oh.
Meemaw was afraid of him. She sat him down, fed him a meal, and then let him out the back door, and that was it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't let me in the kitchen.
Oh. Yeah, I'm almost jealous in a way because you're bringing in all this color that I didn't experience or I can't remember as a child. Seems so sort of conventional.
But I remember him sitting at the table like this, and he was sitting there, and the door to the kitchen was right there. He didn't get in very far.
Oh.
And the door out to the back door was right there, and he'd come in, sit down, and I stayed in the dining room, which was through a door, and on this side there was a big round dining table, and I sat there. He was over in the kitchen table. He ate. Meemaw sat down and had a little conversation with him, and when he was done, she took the plates away, put them in, and he out the back door.
That was the end of that. Yeah. I'm hearing a sound somewhere.
Probably me.
Oh, okay. Now that I have hearing aids, I'm.
Oh, you can hear it.
Oh, isn't it fun getting old?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. I
an experience.
I like to write essays, and I'm thinking my next one will be the best thing about growing old is that whatever you're dealing with, it won't last long.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I'm going to live to be 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
So we did. I'm going to sort of wrap up, I think, because I didn't want to drill too deep in the ancestries because it quickly becomes
Oh,
like, who the heck are they talking about?
well, you can't go back really to the 1600s. There's times when, like World War I, II, things were destroyed. There's people lied on censuses, you know. So really, I only take God's truth to about 1600, about 17th century, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And that the rest is, oh, that might be true.
Well, I hear you, and I think it would be even more. I get that point, and it would be challenging to talk about it in a verbal conversation and not lose track of where the heck are you and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and that. And so there is I think the need in something you fulfilled in collecting this information. And what I've been thinking about lately, and I'll leave it at this, is there some way to preserve that will not, I call it, evaporate or go to the bit heaven in the sky, you know, the digital graveyard, and no one will ever see it again. And I know that there may not be many that think about care, but it's funny. It's funny how, as you go through life and you have the check boxes and you've done so many things and you're at the other end of it, how interesting and I call it fun to look back at that. And you've provided a lot of that information. I've learned things here that I think are amazing, and we'll see if we can assimilate that in a way that will outlive both of us. So thanks for watching, and check in next year, 2019.
19.
Okay.